In this video, I'm going to share with you the introduction that I did this last Friday to our Friday Stock Talk. Our Friday Stock Talk is where our tribe members come together through a video call, and my introduction is going to be what I learned this last week and what I want to share with my tribe members so they can make better investment decisions. Then it's followed by Mark, who goes through his week of swing trading and the results they've achieved and what the profits and losses that were incurred in the last week's swing trading tutorials. And then Trent comes in and does more of a macro look at how the markets have reacted over the past week and what the socioeconomic situation is moving, how it is moving the market, so that we have a good understanding of what to expect in the future. None of this is financial advice. This is just us at Best of Us Investors sharing our knowledge.
Best of Us Investors presents Kerry Griegmeyer.
This is what I learned over the past week from my activities. Basically, my learnings came from four sources. The first was the Deal Book Summit. This was Time Magazine, the New York Times newspaper's annual summit where Andrew Ross Sorkin, at least this year, conducted several interviews. The first interview that I learned a lot from was the Elon Musk interview, and that was accentuated by the fact that I've read Walter Isaacson's book and have a pretty good understanding about who Elon is and what he's all about. But I thought I learned some more from the interview. My first takeaway was that Elon apparently recognized that Twitter, now called X, is the largest depository of data in the world today. That is to say, because of the conversations, the tweets, the X's that people make on Twitter now, it is being saved as data. And it has already surpassed the amount of data that is held by Google or Azure or Amazon Web Services. So this is a tremendous asset that Elon foresaw. And if you watch the video, you know that he has been in something of an ugly exchange because of some of his comments, which were interpreted to be anti-Semitic, and many advertisers, including Disney, the strongest, have said they're going to stop advertising. And Elon basically said that if that's what you want to do, his words exactly were, "Go F yourself. You will put us out of business because we will have no advertising, and the town square for the world will go away. But that's your decision." That's what Elon said. "I'll survive. But if you want to put us out of business, okay, I can deal with that." That was a tremendous learning to me. The next interview that really stuck out for me was Jensen Huang's of NVIDIA. He taught me in that interview what a supercomputer was relative to the computer that I have under my desk. He told me that his computer has 30,000 parts of it in it. 6 of those parts come from Taiwan Semiconductor. Oh, maybe I need to buy some Taiwan Semiconductor. He told me that it weighed 70 pounds and it was being manufactured by Supermacro Computer, who put all the parts together, and it sold for $250,000. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not when you think that there's actually up to 1,000 of them in a data center. That's what it cost to build a data center today. As he explained to me, every data center that we have now or had at this time last year is obsolete because the computers in it do not have the capability to produce the computing power that is going to be needed by the fact that we have artificial intelligence. As he said, we are moving from a situation where you went to a website and retrieved data to one now where you go to a website and you generate data. You ask a question, it comes back to you. That requires roughly 1,000 times the data, the compute power of what you've got under your desk, even if you have a gaming computer. So I learned that. I also learned he was asked a question that I really found interesting, and that was, do you worry about China's activity towards Taiwan and the possible threat to Taiwan semiconductor? And he said no. Why? They said, oh, he says, if they did, it'd take 20 to 25% out of the economy immediately. But he says there's one country that would hurt more, and that's China. China cannot afford to allow that to happen. So now Xi Jinping's visit last month to the United States started to make more sense to me. The next interview that really was important to me was that of Jamie Dimon. His opening statement was, "This is the scariest time that I've been in the last decade." And he referred to the geopolitical situation that is underway, that if this is not settled, it will create a very scary market. But as he said, I will continue in business and I will continue to serve my customers, and we will move through whatever happens and the world will be a better place. He then talked about it's all about risk management. I patted myself on the back that I'm in 50% cash. I'm managing risk because I recognize this can happen. He tells me that the markets will go down before they go up much higher because there will be another rate hike increase. That's what Jamie said. Then one of the most important parts, and I would say that 90% of the people that watch this didn't catch it, Jamie and Wall Street collectively threw Jamie's hat into the ring to run for president of the United States. Now, if you don't think that happened, go watch the last 3 minutes of that interview. Then I would ask you, after you watch that, do you think that you could bring Jamie Dimon into a 33-minute conversation and not tell him what you're going to ask him before it starts? Do you think that Bill Ackerman was an accident in the audience and raised his hand and said, yeah, I have a question for you, Jamie. If I was anointed the chooser of the President of the United States and I anointed you, what is the first thing that you would do? Jamie didn't hesitate. He didn't have to think about it because he knew that question was coming. His answer was, I would create a negative tax. And I would incentivize every poor person to make more money. And I would do that by saying, if you made $15,000 this year and you're in poverty, we'll send you a check for $15,000. If you make $20,000 next year, we'll send you a check for $20,000. He said, we have been promising these poor people of our nation since Johnson administration that we would take them out of poverty, and we have done nothing to take them out of poverty. And if I was president, I would. Now you're going to ask me, how would I pay for it? And he pointed to the people in the audience who were the CEOs of most of the major companies in this world and the Wall Street leaders and said, I would raise your taxes and you would pay for it. And you're going to thank me when you're done. Then they said the second thing I would do is I would fill my cabinet with Republicans and Democrats, and I would pick you, Bill Ackerman, to be my Secretary of Treasury. That was a planned statement. Earlier, he had been asked, will you vote for either Trump or Biden? And he said, don't ask me that question. I will not give you an answer. Jamie Dimon will be on the ballot next November. If I'm wrong, rub my nose in it. but I think that's what's going to happen because Wall Street needs it to happen. My next learning of last week was from a book I'm reading, and I strongly suggest you read this book. It is called The Chip Wars. It's by Chris Miller. Chris has explained to me how the world was driven by steel and iron ore up until the early 60s. And that's when they invented the first transistor. It was the size of something like this. Now that transistor has turned into a semiconductor. He has taught me that semiconductor is now about the same size as that transistor. The difference is it's made out of a silicone chip that is manufactured, and then people design what goes on that silicone chip. When the transistor started, as I said, it was 2 inches by 2 inches. The new silicone chips have the equivalent of that transistor 1 million times on a chip. So a chip contains 1 million transistors, if you will, the size of a grain of sand. And each one of those transistors make a plus or a minus decision. So if you have 1 million decision makers that can say yes or no, or plus or minus, you have the power of 1 million decisions making at a time. What they're now doing is stacking those silicone chips, so you have the power of 8 million decision makers making decisions and answering your questions from ChatGPT. He points out that in World War II, a pilot would drop a bomb, and if that bomb got within a quarter of a mile of the target, he was doing good. But we taught the world in the Iraqian war that we could hit a single city block. Because when the Iraqian war started, we sent jets driven and directed by semiconductors, and we immediately hit the communication center of Baghdad and wiped out their communications with one rocket. At that point, the world woke up and said, these people are the strongest power in the world, not because of steel, not because of airplanes, not because of pilots, but because of semiconductors. At that point, every country in the world put somebody on a plane, got them to the United States, and they raced to steal our semiconductors and take them back so that they could fight against us. In the interview with Jensen of NVIDIA, he was asked, can they catch up? Can they steal our data and catch up with us? So they're all 10 years behind. If they educate their people, they might get within 5 years of our capability. But we need them to manufacture our semiconductors. The next lesson I learned from my chip wars, I have learned I need to own NVIDIA, AMD, Broadcom, ASML, Samsung, Taiwan Semiconductor, ARM, Supermicro Computers, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and 20 other stocks. I learned it in my book. The next thing that I learned, which I hope you got my email this morning, and I asked you to watch the video, and that was my recording of last Sunday's 60 Minutes. In last Sunday's 60 Minutes, they announced that IBM, earlier this week, would introduce their quantum computer. And they went on to explain to me that the next element of computing is that of quantum computing. And what a quantum computer will do is make decisions and give you computing power that our current computers would take 1 million years to come up with. They will do it in minutes. That's quantum computing. So I thought the question, does that mean that all the supercomputers that are in our data centers will be obsolete within 5 years? No. To use a quantum computer to make the decisions that are needed for artificial intelligence would be like doing dental work with a jackhammer or chartering a helicopter to go to the grocery store. No, there won't be that many quantum computers. They never mentioned the price, but it's going to make the decisions that is going to take the diseases out of our body, that are going to take to solve global warming, to solve the food problems of our world. Whoever owns these, this is stated in that interview, whoever owns these quantum computers will rule the world because they will have more computing power than anyone else. Who is that? Well, that was my next learning. And that was, I learned that Mark Zuckerberg, in the month of November, sold $200 million of his Meta stock. Now, that's only less than 1% of Mark's Meta stock. His Meta stock is worth $112 billion. I figured it out. Mark's $200 million sale would be comparable to me selling $3,450 worth of something. That's the difference in our net worth. So, but yet, Mark sold 200 million. What motivated him to do it? Was it charity? No. If it was charity, he'd give them the stock so that they wouldn't have to pay, and he wouldn't have to pay the capital gains of 15% on his sale. So it wasn't for charity. Besides, he has his own charity that he and his wife have pledged that they will give up 99% of their wealth before they die. No, I think what Mark did was say there is an investment that will make my children, he has 3 children, more money than Meta stock. And I think I know what it is. I think it's IBM. I think it's Google. I think it's Amazon. Because those are the 3 companies who have quantum computers today. And that's why I've got an order in for all 3 of those stocks. And I think you should. Should you go crazy with it? No, because it's at least 5 years away. But when it comes, it will change this world. I got a text from Brian this morning. Did you see that Bluebird is up 15% this morning? And I went and I looked and I said, yeah, I see that. It was up because the FDA approved a CRISPR treatment for sickle cell anemia this morning. And if you follow this, you know it then went down 40%. It was up 15 this morning. It's down 40% this afternoon. Why? Because as I told Nick last week, it's going to cost $3.5 million to have that treatment. I went in and bought 1,000 shares. Why? Because it'll double probably by this time next week. As the world figures out, we'll find a way to pay that $3.5 million to take sickle cell anemia out of people's bodies. If it doesn't happen in a week, it'll happen in a month. Because this is the first element of genome sequencing, genome editing, and the changing of our lives. What astounds me is we did it with the current computing power. When we get quantum computing, the diseases that you know will go away, and our world will change. And you're very, very lucky that you're here and you're starting to understand what advanced computing power is going to do. And you're in the midst of the most money that will ever be made on the stock market. And it'll probably, I can't say that. If they can invent quantum computers that will do in minutes what our current computing power would take millions of years to do, this world is changing. And those of us who keep up with it and read and listen are going to have a wonderful opportunity. I currently have 11 buy orders. I have them available to you below my cheat sheet of what I'm buying and at what price I'm buying it. I think you have an opportunity. One other thing happened this week. I got a text again from John the appraiser. And John sent me a link to a video by Steve Harvey. If you don't know who Steve Harvey, he's a black comedian. He has a TV show, and he did a video called Jump. And I want you to go find that. If you have any entrepreneurial spirit whatsoever, as he explains, all you have to do is jump. That is to say, you've got some ability, some capability, something that can change you from a worker to an entrepreneur. And all you've got to do is jump. It's going to be just like, as he draws the analogy, just like jumping out of an airplane. Just like jumping out of an airplane. You're going to be scared to living death. And as you jump, you're going to say, holy shit, what did I do? I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to die. I'm going to lose everything that I have. And then the chute's going to open. And you're going to say, my God, this is the most glorious experience I have ever had, and I am taking control of my own life. Now, he throws a little God in here, and that God won't allow anything bad to happen to you. But watch that video if you have any entrepreneurial spirit, and then jump. Thank you, John. Okay, now what we're going to do is Trent's going to give us some input, and then you're going to have the opportunity to ask any questions and broaden your horizons. Take it over, Trent.
I'm going to allow Mark to jump in here since he was second on the agenda.
Okay.